I'm going to call tonight's meeting to order. Oh, no roll call is next. No flag salute.
Mayor Pro Tem Wall,
Here.
Mayor Matsumoto Wright,
Here.
Councilmember Murray,
Present.
Councilmember Ryan,
Here.
Councilmember Sonmore.
Here.
Councilmember Woodard,
Here.
and we're expecting Councilmember Payne Donovan online shortly.
All right. So next is the public comment. Do we have any public comments tonight? Jeff? Do we change this around now or later?
No public comments tonight.
And nothing ahead of time?
No one registered online, no one signed up in person, and
All right.
nothing submitted in writing.
Thank you. So next is the city manager's report then.
Thank you, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. First, if it's okay with council, on your agenda, you see presentations on the proposed 25-26 biennial budget by department. And I would like to move the IT presentation above parks so that then we can run through all of the parks items and you can review those and ask questions, and have IT go first just so they're not sitting here waiting. That's all right with you? Okay, thank you. So a couple of things to mention. First, December 6th will be our 70th anniversary celebration and tree lighting out here in the plaza. We have a lot of, or some interesting things that we're going to do, including stenciling our logo on a couple of street corners, and we're going to hope to get some drone footage of that if the weather's halfway decent. So that should be fun. We also are striping all of our roadways throughout the city in October, and doing that in order to get ahead of the weather so that the lines and everything are nice and bright for people traveling through our community. And wanted to remind both ourselves and the community about catch basins. We see all the leaves starting to fall now, and we want to make sure we take care of those so that our street crews have a little help and can maintain our roads and try to prevent any flooding, any localized flooding in our community. Wanted to thank the Ivy League for their work in Terrace Creek Park last Saturday, I believe, and they planted 16 new trees. So that's great, and thank you very much for that. Next, October has 5 Thursdays. So next Thursday on Halloween, there is no council meeting, and our next meeting will not be until November 7th. So I wanted to highlight that. Also, there's only 3 meetings in November because the last one falls on Thanksgiving night, and I'm sure none of us will want to be here, barring an emergency. So with that, that's all I have, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
First, I want to say that Councilmember Payne Donovan is now here.
Thank you.
Welcome. And
Hello, thanks, Mayor.
any questions?
Can I just ask one?
Go ahead.
Can I ask, I missed what you were saying, you're kind of talking that way. A new logo, what's happening for the Christmas tree lighting? did you
It's
say?
not a new logo. We're stenciling our logo in some of the intersections around town.
Oh, good, thank you.
Is that like a spray paint, or we're going to be?
It's, Andrew, what's the material? Yeah. Yeah, so road paint, the same that we use for striping, just in our blue and green colors.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Wall?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So it's expected to last a little while.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you.
Anyone else? Oh. Councilmember Payne Donovan?
Thanks, Mayor. Jeff, since I know we'll get some questions about it, where or which intersections, I think I missed this part of your comments, but which intersections will be getting the logo?
So 58th and 232nd, right out here.
56th and 232nd, 58th and 232nd, 56th and 236th, and 58th and 237.
So those 4 intersections. 58th and 56th, mostly at 232nd and 236th.
All right. That's going to make the city a little bit more colorful in the wintertime. Anyone else?
All right, thank you.
All right, thanks.
And I am going to move up there because Parks has a lot of people and there's not enough seats, but I will be back.
But we're going to go with IT first. So these are the presentations on the proposed 2025-2026 biennial budget by departments, and now it's the IT department.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. I am Gary Knight. I will be going over the 2025 and 2026 budget. Our team consists of 1 IT manager, 1 systems analyst, and 1.75 help desk support technicians. The IT department provides support to all city departments. We are responsible for the technology infrastructure, including hardware, software, and cloud systems, security, and more. We aspire to provide exceptional customer service to our team members and to enhance efficiencies, communications, and systems access. Some of our accomplishments over the last 2 years are Office 365 implementation, Astound Fiber implementation for internet redundancy. We assisted with Invoice Cloud and Axon body cam implementations. We developed the 5-year technology plan, started our Windows 11 upgrade process, and assisted with Central Square and GovQA implementations. We expanded mobile services to employees by adding 29 new mobile devices. We implemented multi-factor authentication, increased Wi-Fi coverage. We replaced aging servers, computers, and other critical hardware, such as our firewall and intrusion prevention system. And we put together a cooperative purchasing agreement with the City of Edmonds. Our goals for this budget cycle is implement asset management system, Tyler content manager system, Axon in-car camera system, complete the Windows 11 migration, update our IT policies, replace network switches, aging servers, workstations, and other hardware and phones as needed. We have 1 new personnel change. We added 1 FTE. Alan is doing an awesome job. And everyone was handed a financial summary, so I'd like to go over that next. Some of these items, there's no numbers in there, but I'll go over those with you. The actuals for 21, 22, and 2023, our actuals were in the range of 650 to 850,000. And this year, 2024, we budgeted 1.5 million. And we're proposing in 2025, nearly 1.7 million, and in 2026, 1.5 million. So this IT budget follows and supports the recommendations in the 5-year information technology plan that we did this year. We will continue to move on-premise systems to the cloud, providing increased accessibility and efficiencies for employees. And with that, discussions and questions.
Okay, Councilmember Sonmore?
Sure.
Thank you. And was this the same thing as that was in the presentation?
This is different.
This is, why is there two? Could you just explain?
I can answer your question, Councilmember. There was an error in picking up all of the expenses from one of our spreadsheets that fills in the general overall budget. And so there were software expenses in 2 places, and it was missed in the transfer of data. And also, we changed the table because we were showing projections going forward, and really we need to show projections going backwards for this fund. So we, by the RCWs, need to show the previous years. And because this is a new fund, we actually don't have data in the previous years. But we do have some numbers if you are interested in what previous expenditures had been.
Can I ask, is this what the accountant did for us? Is that what you hired the CPA to do this part of the budget?
There's a combination of steps. So there are the staff experts in every department who put together their initial budget. And then the consultant helped transfer data into the final budget. And there's a number of QC processes that have been occurring between our new finance director and myself, and then the department leads. So
The spreadsheet that we're looking at looks towards the future, and this one, we don't have any data for 21, 22, 23, and 24?
It's because we created a new fund for IS, so it's an internal services fund, which we didn't have before. Before, those expenses were in the general fund, and because we are collecting money from the various departments to pay for IS, our new finance director and consultant recommended that we have an internal services fund. But we can share some past expenditures if you're interested.
Oh, I've got, well, I don't have the printed new one, but I have our printed old one. And so I'm just curious, it was in the general fund, and now it's in a brand-new fund for IT internal services, and this fund is this 512.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see. Do you know what those changes are? What are the big differences?
The major expenses, and Gary can help explain some of this, but between this year, our projected numbers were about 1.5 million. And moving forward, we're looking at 1.6 to 1.5 million. So it really just depends on the number of software expenses, new projects that we're putting together, the consultant needs, and if there's any major hardware replacements.
Go ahead, Councilmember Woodard.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm trying to figure out if Councilmember Sonmore was done. I just wanted to make sure that I understand the handout. As I'm looking at the bottom there in 2025, additional 300,000, obviously, no, let's say all the numbers, 3,001, $301,000, 20,000. I can't say that. That's too big of a number for me. Point remains, I'm in the wrong business. Software licensing and renewals and technical support. It actually goes up the next year, so is that almost guaranteed to go up, or is there just something going on, like we're onboarding some new software and that's why it's so expensive, or is that pretty much just telling us this is how much it's going to be? And then just so I'm also clear, that is accounted for in the line under operating expenses software, right? So the 301 is part of the 698, or is that on top of the 698? So kind of two questions in there, if you will, but just want to make sure that that bottom line, is the 301 already in this green column, or is that on top of that? And then, as I was initially asking, should we expect this in 2027, or is there something going on specifically in 25 and 26?
Which one are you looking, which one are you looking at?
It was handed to me as just a handout, so I don't know how to answer that one.
It's this handout right here.
I'm sorry, Councilmember Woodard, are you comparing the handout to what was on the slide?
No,
Oh, okay.
not at all. So
Okay.
I'm just, that's what I'm like, just looking at this one. So at the bottom, it says in 2025, there's an additional cost of
yes.
$301,000, another $20,000.
Yes, yeah.
Right? So I was just asking, is that twofold question? And I'll reverse them this time. First, is the 301 already part of the 698?
Yes.
Perfect. I want to make sure it wasn't actually a million something. And then 301 this year, 342 next year. My question there becomes, am I in the wrong business? That's my side joke. But nonetheless, is that an anticipated cost? We should expect that to be the same moving forward? Or is there something going on in these 2 years for software licensing, renewal, and technical support? Like maybe renew it every 10 years. I doubt that's the case.
Yeah, I think Gary could answer that better, but certainly there are changes every year in the software.
Yeah, in particular, the Office 365 licenses, the new asset management system that we'll be getting.
Is that, so it's an annual?
It is
so-
it is
So we
annual,
should expect that half of that budget is just in the licensing. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, so I understand. At least half of that budget is almost just for software licensing, renewals, and tech support. And you are not the tech support. That's part of the software licensing. Again, I'm just looking at the bottom line here to read what it's saying it's paying for.
Yes, and so some of the money is for renewals and some is for new software products. And so
Sure.
there's a higher front-end cost for the new software products. So then that line item could change every year depending on, it could go lower or higher depending on what our needs are.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Yes.
Maybe it could go lower, because right
Yes.
now it went substantially higher the
Yes.
next year. And I'm like, should we plan on that being even higher the year after, or it can fluctuate? 'Cause-
It can fluctuate, and, we just did the IT strategic plan, which had a number of initiatives, and so there are some significant expenses coming forward. We are pacing them out throughout the next few years, not doing them all at once, of course, but a couple of those products are rather expensive.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a vote for open access, but here we find ourselves. Okay, thank you.
Go ahead,
Oh,
Councilor
thanks.
Sommer.
You brought up a good question. What are the follow-on numbers that you propose for expenses? And are we ever going to go in the red? Because we can't see what the future budgets are, because I'm always asking everyone, Gary, if there's any surprises that you see coming, because, our budget should stay pretty stable throughout the year because this is what we're being presented. And so is it just pretty stable across the next 5 years?
It's pretty stable, yeah. There is some going to be new software items in 2027 and 2028, according to the 5-year technology plan that we did this year.
And we don't have exact pricing on all of that yet, but the one thing about this being an internal services fund is that the various departments are paying IS for their services and their share of the software and hardware. So this revenue is coming from the utilities and general fund based on what their needs are.
So for council, it's always frustrating when we change counts because all of a sudden we're playing kind of dice games. What was wrong with it before? Why did you change it?
Because we were trying to track that we were transferring the funds appropriately between the departments. We're trying to improve our internal services and internal allocation model.
How does that improve the internal model when we had a model before?
Because we can account for who's using the software and how much the allocation should be for each of the departments. And so it's similar for fleet, as an example. So various departments have different vehicles, and we have to charge them a monthly allocation so that we can put money in the bank to buy the next vehicle. So, and this is just more of a reverse payment. We're not paying forward.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. So next will be the Parks and Recreation Department. Ours, Recreation and Parks.
Man, that's a lot of paperwork here. This mouse doesn't always work very good.
Okay, good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. I'm Jeff Betts, the Recreation and Parks Director for the city, and I will be co-presenting tonight's first presentation on recreation programs, and the other supervisors here with me and coordinator are going to introduce themselves. So if you want to start on this side.
Andrew Opwick, Events Coordinator.
I'm Renee Norton. I'm the Support Services Supervisor.
Rose Plug, Recreation Supervisor for Aquatics.
And I'm Danielle Ladd, the Athletics Supervisor and Youth Program Supervisor.
Okay, so we are going to review, as mentioned, first of all, the Recreation Fund. This is the overarching agenda. I'll have to switch presentations 3 more times after this, but the first one will be Recreation Fund and the fee schedule all in one. So first of all, the Recreation Fund, or 133 Fund, it consists of 4 recreation program divisions, including aquatics, general recreation, athletic fitness, and youth programs. But in addition, we are adding a division here that's events. You can see that it's new on our org chart. And then also beyond those programs, we have support services that does what? It supports those divisions and manages the business operations for the recreation programs. So the mission of recreation is to provide the community with a wide array of quality leisure activities and events that encourage and promote positive health and positive and healthy lifestyles for all ages and abilities. So one of the key issues with that mission statement, and one of the key things I want to get across, is that recreation programs in general, especially Mountlake Terrace recreation programs, provide a lot of key services that we're going to talk about here. But we also want to just toot our horn. We're very special in the region that we do offer a lot of programs that others don't do. There's lifelong learning opportunities. We have a pool. Many communities wish they had a pool and could utilize that and walk down the street and do a rec swim or swim lesson. So it's a very unique experience that we offer and well loved by the community. So now we just want to take some time, I'm going to pass it around. They're all going to talk about each individual accomplishments that we've been able to do in 23 and 24.
Oh, it's lit, okay. So with the goal of growing our vibrant community in mind, we have expanded and diversified our recreation program offerings, increased our events from 6 last year to 15 this year, and found more ways to incorporate art and artists in the city. Excuse me, this slide points out some of our accomplishments related to the council goal, responsible governance to ensure desired level of service. A few of them are growth of concessions, including 12,774 popcorns sold in 2023, increased swimming lesson offerings, an ARPA-funded scholarship program, and event sponsorships totaling $40,000 in 2024.
Our accomplishments for an informed and engaged community. This year, the city partnered with, as well as worked closely with our own boards and commissions, as well as other nonprofits and agencies locally, including our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Commission, to help co-host the Snow Owl Library's Juneteenth event and Welcoming Week, as well as supporting the Arts of the Terrace art show. Reflecting with the council goal, growing a vibrant community, we need to grow events in a strategic manner, and we're looking to do so to make sure that we are respectful of the budget that we do have here to operate events, and to make sure we seek sponsorship support to create events and partnerships moving forward.
With growing our vibrant community, well, this slide, it has to do with our recreation pavilion. The pavilion is central for all of our recreation opportunities, and quality recreation department and a center that's going to attract and retain community members. So we need to start with conducting the feasibility study on how we're going to be able to replace the pavilion, exploring the funding options, and then we need to implement and execute the plan. The council goal, responsible governance to ensure the desired level of service. Well, this is having the correct resources in place so we can meet the desired levels of service if necessary. We need to update the recreation parks and open space plan and the capital improvement plan. We also need to ensure that we have correct staffing resources. And so we need to increase our, how many swim instructors we have and lifeguards. And then we can increase our pavilion hours.
For the desired level of service, to continue with that, we also offer recreation scholarship. That's a budget line item for 25 and 26 of $5,000 per year for scholarships to help families cover the cost of programs, and then provide training opportunities to meet state and national standards. Many of our trainings are safety related, from CPR, lifeguarding. Most are American Red Cross. We also use the National Recreation and Park Association for aquatic facility operator. And we have in-house lifeguard instructors, lifeguard instructor trainers who are at a higher level of training, giving everybody a lot of training opportunities. And then for an informed and engaged community, there have been many recent enhancements for the maximizing use of technology and efficient marketing, registration and customer service. DaySmart has been upgraded a little bit recently to make it more user-friendly for our customers. And then we've also been using social media and participation to increase participation and awareness of programs and alert community members of changes throughout the department and facilities.
Okay, and then moving on to some personnel changes. So event coordinator was added to the recreation fund in this proposed budget. It was previously funded via ARPA in the parks budget. Also, we've increased FTEs for part-timers, mainly for swim instructors and lifeguards and childcare staff in this proposed budget. And this is really to get back to nearabouts to where we were for staffing levels, and trying to increase that amount each year to provide more services. We also propose moving a clerk 2 from 3/4 time to full time, and that's really the same reason to continue to try to expand our hours. So other changes in the budget, obvious one, event program development. So that's we've always had a hand in events and recreation and parks, but all the departments have kind of chipped in on each type of event. Some have been ran out of police before, some have been ran out of the city manager's office, and this was really to centralize that into recreation. So additionally, this budget reflects expanding the pavilion hours again. Our aim is to open again on Sundays by the end of the year, and a lot of that will depend on staffing levels. We also have really pushed our additional, adding some of these lifelong learning classes, and that was a big recommendation that came out of the last Parks Plan. And so many classes have been added and well attended, and they seem to be doing really well, and the community's enjoying those. Increasing swim lesson offerings is the most obvious one, I feel like at times. There's the most complaints that we hear of not having enough space, so it's really our goals to get everybody in classes and learn to swim. And then, as I mentioned, reference the Recreation Parks Open Space Plan, it is due again. So the next budget cycle, we're proposing to work on that to make sure we're staying compliant. And then additionally, Recreation Pavilion planning. So financial summary. So this financial summary slide shows an increase in recreation revenues from the 2024 budget, which was developed during the rebound from the pandemic. Really felt like creating that budget in 2022 was more difficult than most budgets, trying to figure out where we were going to be in revenue, especially on how low we were in revenue at that time. So you can see a gradual increase in revenue from 21, 22, and 23 under total operating revenue. Additionally, you could see that 24's budget was quite a bit higher than what we did in 23. We're expecting to be around that number this year. We shall see, but we have some more work to do. But we are proposing to increase those revenues again in 25 and 26. And it is a mixed bag of why those revenues would be increasing. Part of it would be that we intend to increase our hours and increase staffing levels, but the other part of it we're going to talk about later is fees, and it's a fee increase pretty much across the board. So other financing sources are on here as well, and I will speak to the transfer from the general fund in the next slide, and as well as some of the other expenses. So expenses have increased. They have actually decreased under total operating expenditures from 24's budget. And part of the reason why that is that there's a change to the transfers. We used to transfer property management, and so that facilities charge used to be a transfer that recreation would have to pay. And so it's about $800,000 range in this year's budget. And internally, we discussed this transfer and why it may not be the best way to represent what the true costs are, basically because property management is not an internal services fund. It's not like IT. We don't charge any of the other departments, so why do we charge one department but none of the others? So that was one of the discussions we had of police doesn't pay into it, or the departments at City Hall or anything like that. So we do split the property management budget up by facility, but we don't charge the departments that. The only one that was, as I mentioned, was recreation. So property management was shown, as I mentioned, as sort of an internal services fund, but it's not. So we are expecting a general fund transfer of approximately $750,000 in 25 and $798,000 in 2026, which are all improved numbers from 2021, 22, and 23. But, obviously we're still well below where we were years ago and where we would like to be. The cost recovery is proposed to be about 78% in both years. And as mentioned, that would include, though, overhead costs, any of the appraisal performance increases, as well as cost of living adjustments, just would not include the facilities maintenance charge. The questions?
Councilmember Salmore?
I have a few. Knowing that our pool is on the brink of having to be shut down, we're looking at an increase of like $160,000 in aquatic revenue next year. I know we're going to be increasing, if it's passed, some council fees for aquatics. Does that make up the $160,000? Because that seems like a lot of money if we have to figure in the pool might be closing as well. And then just a follow-up to that, I'll just say them both. espresso sales, to go up another $3,000 in the next year, are you looking at doubling or adding more coffee or popcorn to it, especially when the pool may be closed at certain times more than others because it's failing? It's just, it seems like huge increases.
Okay, so you're not talking about what's on the screen here, but you're talking about like line item revenues?
If you go back up to
Okay.
one more page up, revenues.
Okay, you're talking about the vending espresso sales combination number, right? We do expect to increase those quite a bit, and I would let Renee speak to that. But the one thing I would say first, I'm going to guess what the answer is, but the answer would be that we weren't able to staff the espresso stand quite a bit in the last few years. And one of the things that we hope to do is be able to continue to expand those hours. If we were closed Saturday in previous years, last year, maybe year before, we were able to open part-time Saturdays. We'd be able to extend those hours and then also open Sundays. We'd be able to have more espresso sales.
That is the answer.
So with aquatics, we don't intend to shut the pool down. Do you mean for maintenance itself?
Yeah, well, I
Maintenance
mean,
closure?
with the tear and how long the tear is going to hold up and other issues with not having the same staff we had that used to repair the pool here because he retired, and knowing where certain things are to fix the pool, and a whole host of other things, and getting parts and different things like that.
Yeah, Floyd will be up here with property management a little bit, but the new staff that we have in property management is doing an excellent job, and one of them has become certified already as a certified pool operator. So lots of learning going on, but definitely picking it all up. So very proactive in making repairs. I don't see any of that being an issue in experience because they are growing, and Floyd's been a good leader. There are some inherent issues with the building and the pool itself with the liner that, we need to try to make some repairs to. So there potentially could be a revenue loss, absolutely, if we close. We haven't determined necessarily when or how much that's going to cost, things like that. We have estimates, but would like to gather some more information first before I spoke to it, though.
2027, is there a date that maybe you're looking at that the pool can no longer function? So right now, it's indefinite. The pool's going to be fine until it's not.
Well, I mean, there's definitely going to be maintenance closures. We're going to have to do maintenance, but maintenance is just like if your car needs new tires or it needs an oil change, right? I mean, it will be reopened. It's just, we definitely going to have to do some work on it, whether it's the liner or the air return that we've showed pictures of, where it's in pieces of rust falling out of his hands. But so those are things we're all going to work on to try to repair, and the building will continue to be operational, but it will become more and more challenging.
Because aren't you going to have, are you going to have the community get involved in how to fund? And so we're not giving them a date on how long the pool will last.
No, I mean, I don't, as far as how far out until the building's repaired or the pool's repaired, is that what you're talking about?
Well, until it can't function anymore.
Oh, yeah, I don't think that we know that right now.
Okay, so
Yeah.
there's not a huge need to, because it's going to take quite a few years to get something in place, but you're
Yes.
saying right now there is no date to shut down the pool. It's just going to go until it goes.
No, yeah, there's no date right now.
Anyone else? Councilmember Murray?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Jeff and team. I did have a question. So the proposed numbers before us are based on, I assume, the proposed changes to the rec fee. Do we know do we have budget numbers that we can see if those are not changed? Because we have obviously the 2025 numbers, but I'm curious what the difference is between current state numbers and the proposed changes to the previously approved 2025 fees.
Yeah, we built them off of what we don't have a separate set of revenue numbers right now. It is something that we could develop. Obviously, depending on what happens with the fee schedule, if council wants to modify that or us to go back and change that, we could change these revenue numbers. Always the issue with fee increases is you think you're going to get a 20% increase in revenue. That's not the way it works. I mean, we'll try to do a 20%, if we do a 20% fee increase for swim lessons, you're going to get some attrition, just from the fact that not everybody accepts a rate increase, right? I mean, in any business, you're not going to see all of those revenues. You lose some of that. So that's definitely on our mind. But we've done quite a bit of research that we'll show you in the next presentation about why we think it's appropriate, especially related to some of the programs, how we've fallen pretty far behind where other pools have really escalated their costs. And we're probably, in some ways, in some of the programs, in the bottom third in the state in some of our pricing, but we're one of the better pools, really. So one of the more active pools anyway. And so I think that it'll be something that we can show you, but we definitely could go back. It won't be, we'll have to do a different data set that would show those increases as related to the attrition that you would see. So that's what we based it on.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. I appreciate it. Yeah, I guess maybe I'll hold until we after you review the second part so that I'm not asking questions preemptively. But I guess for me, it might be helpful to understand ballpark what those increases mean in terms of total revenue and the budget, just to better understand, since those are significant increases that we're looking at in that next set.
Councilmember Payne Donovan.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And I think the discourse with Councilmember Murray answered some of my questions, so I'll hold off until the next sort of portion of things. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And similar to the possibility that these questions may be answered later on, let me know if I'm asking prematurely. But I'm interested in a couple of different things: events, public art, and hotel motel tax. Starting with events, where's the line item on what we're funding for events? But I should back up. Yay for Andrew, funding Andrew in the budget. I'm so excited that we're going to continue that, the events coordinator program position and program, and I'm thrilled. I think that's a great investment for the community, so I'm really thankful that that's in the budget. That said, I'd like to know what the line item is for the events in general, not for Andrew, but for events.
I'll let Andrew review it.
All right. So right now we're total events projection 2024 and budget would be just shy of $64,000. 2025 and 2026 right around 74,500 with an increase just to continue expanding events. That does not take into account any sponsorship dollars that would come in to offset that. Those have adjusted each year already, so we can't count on those, but right around that $64,000 to $75,000.
Thank you. Can we get that broken out, and then also what we, recognizing that we can't count on future revenues from sponsorship, just kind of get a snapshot of what's happened in the past, so we can kind of have an understanding of what we think we might be able to fund. But you're saying that roughly $75,000, just under $75,000 per year is being invested into event programming.
Yes.
Does that include your salary
or? No.
Does not include you.
No, that's just the events.
Yeah, that's,
yeah,
thank you. Yeah, no, that's good. That's what I was looking for. Yeah, I'd love to get that broken down by kind of an idea of how much we're kind of budgeting per event, and then what we, in the past, kind of the revenues that we've seen from that. And I'm interested in what kind of potential we have for future event programming. I know we'll hear more about that next year when we start looking at our goals for the coming years, but I know there's been some discussion about expanding some event programming. I'm excited about that. And so I'm obviously interested in making sure that we're funding that now as we're appropriately as we're looking forward to expanding events in the future.
And we do have it broken out, so we can definitely get that to you. 2023 sponsorship offset was just over $8,000. Sorry, 2022 was just over $8,000. 2023 was just over $21,000, and this year we're at $46,000. So increasing events and offsetting expenses as well. So
Well done.
that's where we're sitting currently.
And to recognize Andrew's the one that's doing all the work to getting those sponsorships. So well done. Great job on that. But yeah, we'd love to see the numbers on that and have that broken down. Thank you. Hotel motel tax. So is that another presentation, another point, like next week? Or not next week because it's Halloween. Happy Halloween. 2 weeks on November 7th. So I'll reserve any questions on that. What about public art and the 1% for the art? Where am I going to find that line item in the budget?
In 2 weeks.
Right?
No, sorry.
Very good. I will withhold any question. Actually, I'll probably be asking for that information before 2 weeks so I can get that since I will not be available then.
I think off the top of my head, I think our ending fund balance right now in 1% is around $50,000. I think it's about $50,000 right now that we have.
Okay. I'm interested in having, I won't be available for that discussion, but I am very interested in having a discussion about the 1% for the arts and how we're utilizing that fund and looking for opportunities to expand or make great investments in our community utilizing the public art. So look forward to having that conversation and looking forward to next week on the hotel motel lodging tax. So great. But that ties into events. So I want to have, you'll be here for that? You don't need to be here. I think there's, I was noticing in the budget summary that we have a lot of revenues in the fund. And we're not expending all of those revenues each year. And so I think there's opportunity for us to utilize some revenues there from the hotel motel tax, lodging tax, for potentially expanding our events. So we'll look forward to that conversation next week, I guess.
I don't want to steal next week's thunder, but I think the news release that we were just getting ready shows that city manager was discussing this with us a couple days ago, that we were thinking of doubling that amount. This is going to be more like $50,000 that's released that people could compete for instead of the $25,000 that has been.
Where what?
For the lodging tax.
You're going to move it up to 50,000? Why?
Look,
because there's more money to be had. I think there's more that people could apply for. If there's good applications out there, then we want to encourage more people to apply.
But I've been doing this for at least, I don't know, lodging tax, maybe 15 years. We've never had it that high. We've hardly had anybody apply. And we were also going to look, and I've been begging for years to see if we could invest that money into any properties for like an outdoor event or something that we can have theater in the park, at the parks. And now we're going up to $50,000, and when we hardly have anybody apply, I mean, that's bizarre to me.
I could definitely.
And it's a surprise.
There are quite a few different groups, not to digress, there are quite a few different groups that have spoken to Andrew about the need for additional funding, that all of it is taken by the two groups that get awarded funding. And we have quite a bit of extra funding every year right now that's building up. So we would like to see if more groups are interested. We don't have to award it all. Council does not have to award it all.
So why haven't we ever looked at what it would cost to build a stage at one of our parks? Other cities have done it, so you can't tell me that no other cities have done this. But every time I asked, they said, we can't do that in our city. We can't do that in our city. We're not going to, we have this money in our funds. And then all of a sudden, this is a big surprise. And so usually we're not really like surprised like this. Usually we have some briefing beforehand.
That's why this was scheduled for 2 weeks from now? That the LTAC funds were scheduled for 2 weeks from now and not tonight, so we could tell you about it beforehand, but it came up organically in the conversation.
But a lot of times we used to get briefings before the meetings, and that's one of the things that I've had some issues with. So we would know any surprises that's coming to us. And so I'm sorry that you're upset that we brought this up now, but it's good to
I'm not upset. I'm explaining.
That's good. I'm glad you're explaining.
Also, the stage discussion, no one that, since I've been here anyway, has said that we can't build a stage with LTAC funds.
Okay, would you like to talk to some other cities that have? And I'm asking if we can do that, and I'd like to ask that we ask the city to see what it would take to build a stage in our park using LTAC
Have we been turned down before?
No, nobody's just never done that. We have monies in our sitting there. Instead, we're going to raise it to from $25,000 that we give to 2 groups to 50 all of a sudden.
Well, I'm wondering if there's some more money being, that we could use to help Andrew out. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, that discussion is for 2 weeks from now. So I apologize for bringing it up early. I was asking because I didn't know when we'd be covering it. But I was looking at the fund summary, and that's why exactly, there's funding available for us to be able to expand our events programming. And so I'm excited about the potential and looking forward to the discussion on that item. But I think I am curious, so jumping back, since that's a discussion for 2 weeks from now, jumping back to events and public art, where do I find those? Oh, I'm sorry, the public art is in a separate fund that we're going to be talking about in a few weeks. And then the events what line item is that in the recreation budget?
There's a separate org for events itself. I don't know the org number off the top of my head, but we can get you the report that shows.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I'm just curious where I'm finding those.
It's in the fund. It's in the 1 through 3 fund, but it's just an org within that fund. So the numbers in that you're seeing here are all of the orgs added up, right?
Right.
So we can get you that individual number. It probably should be, so typically was there a line item here for the org? I'll look into it on the sheet to make sure it's updated.
Perfect. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Go ahead.
So with that, we have 2 whole weeks to get that report repaired to understand the LTAC budget more and what other cities are doing with their LTAC money. So I just want to put that out there.
Okay. All right. Councilmember Woodard.
Thank you, Mayor, because it looks like you all might get up. And before we start talking about fee schedules, I wanted to just say congratulations to all of you. As I'm looking at these numbers, I'm seeing the same thing, but seeing something instead, which is you're clearly putting out a very good product across the board because people found what to do with their time when we were shut down, and they seem to be coming back. And that to me says it's because it's quality programming, it's creative programming, and it's thinking about what the needs are and then finding ways to marry those two up. So I just want to say I'm very proud of all of you. Thank you for that work, and keep up the great work, although clearly a lot of ground needs to still be made up as we're hearing, but still want to at least acknowledge that this is awesome.
Any more? Okay, thank you. Now we're going into fee schedule.
Okay, thank you again, Council. So we're going to review the recreation fee schedule now. In this, a little bit of background information. In 2000, the Council did adopt an ordinance that enables recreation and parks fees to be set by resolution in a 5-year schedule. In this case, it's 2025 through 2029. So each year, we bring this fee schedule back to the Council to show proposed changes to the already approved fees, and we will compare 2025 fees and adjustments that are proposed by staff. So some additional background on the review and approval process. So we do go through, and everybody seeing this table, go through a pretty rigorous process to evaluate our fees. We take into account several different elements, including obviously the program demand. If there's a program that's in a high demand, and it probably makes sense that we could be underpriced a little bit. Then also the reverse could be true if it's not the only reason, but it also could mean that if it's a little too expensive that we don't have very good turnout. So we do take those fees and the research of some of our neighboring programs, and then we bounce that against the current economy. For instance, after the pandemic was another reason where we didn't really want to raise a lot of fees. And then also with some of the recessions that we've had is kind of a time where we try to pause some of those things. So we also take a look at our financial goals and check to see how these fees help us meet them each year. The fee schedule we're presenting to you does continue to manage resources in a cost-effective manner, and we'll continue to maintain our customer base while at the same time attract new customers. It's very important that each year that we analyze these fees and that see if whether we're in the market or not. So fees can be recommended to stay the same, increase, or decrease depending on all these factors. So before I hand this off to Supervisor Plug here, I just give you a quick update on this chart. It should be familiar to everybody by now, same chart we've used for years. So we do have the fees in the left-hand column, and then the next set of columns is the 2024 approved for comparison with the current year, and then next year's 2025 approved. And so that highlighted in blue would mean that they were scheduled to increase. That council already approved that 2025 middle column. They were already scheduled to increase if they're blue. And if it's in red on the far right column in proposed, or even there's just a fee in there and they're red, it would mean that we're proposing changes on top of that. So now, Rose, would you like to go over the fee schedule for aquatics?
Okay, so this is the drop-in aquatic fee schedule. There was a proposed increase for approved in 2025. We're proposing that we increase even more for 2025-26 to help cover our costs. And we did an evaluation of statewide on our fees, and we were a little bit, you'll see a little bit later that we're a little bit lower than a lot of facilities that are the same, similar to ours. So then for the instruction, it was the same thing. We're proposing increases for 2025. They'll help bring us closer to the similar pools in our area. So all swimming lessons, our specialty classes, and passes, and that. And
as a percentage, we were looking at, it's about a 20% increase from our current rate.
Okay. And then for rentals, pool rentals were approved to increase in 2025. We're going to stick with that, that increase. And then down lower for Lazy River and the rental of the lap lanes or the deep area, we're trying to get those to be similar so that when we rent those out on a individual basis, that the renter is paying the same thing because it's all about the same. We've decided to drop the overnight rental. It's a drain on our workforce, and it's also it's becoming more difficult to offer in a safe manner with staff, especially young staff, and they can't work past midnight, so it makes it really hard. So we're pushing those types of rentals to after hours where we can adjust, we can do those. And then we're also dropping the therapy pool rental because nobody ever rented it. So in our fee comparison charts, we have two columns for Mountlake Terrace. The first one is 2024, and then the second one is 2025. So you can kind of see that our drop-in fees in 2024 were at the lower end of the spectrum when comparing fees to similar pools. The proposed increases will keep us similar to nearby pools. And when I talked to Linwood, they are also increasing their drop-in fees. So
these comparisons are based on current rates. They could all rate increase them also next year, that we don't necessarily always know that.
Yeah. Okay, then for swimming lessons, you can see we're moving to increase our swimming lessons as well. We're kind of at the lower end. We did a statewide fee survey for WRPA, and we're still kind of in the middle with the 2025 fees. But this will bring us all very similar to Linwood and Snohomish and our nearby competitors. So anyway. And then pool rentals, the 2024 to 25, we moved just slightly. So we're going to stick with the approved rental fees. So we're kind of in the same general area.
So this slide is our, the fees for room rentals. And we are recommending a slight increase from what was approved. And this is after doing some assessment on what other places are doing. If you look down below, you'll see that the lobby rentals, we are requesting to drop that one. We don't rent out our lobby. That used to be a thing a long time ago. This slide here is, these are our youth programs. This one is specifically our summer day camps. So, and so much of all of my slides, it's because I did a lot of comparisons in the spring and the summer of what everyone else was doing this year. And our programs, we were falling, our prices were so much lower than others. And I do have some slides in here that'll show a comparison with our competitors. This slide is our school age program and our preschool programs. So these are our school year programs. And again, the same thing where we were falling much shorter with how much we were charging. So this is the slide showing our school year childcare. It's in ascending order where so our school age 2024, and those are the rates. If you look in the column of the before and after care package, which is common, a lot of parents sign up for that package. And we've been charging for our residents $4.12 an hour. Our biggest competitor, which is Right at School, they've been charging $6.09 an hour. And then the Shoreline YMCA, also a competitor, and the Alderwood Boys and Girls Club. And so we've been just much lower than the others. And then this shows the comparisons that I did with our preschool program. And just looking in the first column, the one that says childcare, because that's a popular for parents to want their 3- and 4-year-olds in the all-day program. And we've been charging our residents $4.85 an hour. So I am requesting that the rate now be $5.63 an hour. The Linwood Recreation, actually, they have a half-day program. They don't have a full-day program. But your eyes, if they go to the Alderwood Boys and Girls Club, they are $8.48 an hour. And the Shoreline Center, that's close to us, they're $12.58 an hour. So we've been much lower than our competitors. This is our indoor playground. And there is another, you'll see another slide that shows that I am requesting that the rates, that what was approved, that it get changed. But this gives you a comparison to show you where our indoor playground falls with, there's not a lot of indoor playgrounds in the area. Ours is very popular. So we're kind of right in there with, Shoreline has one. Right here is where you can see the indoor playground, and I am requesting that we raise the rate to $4.50. one of the things that we need, our indoor playground, it's become more popular, and the equipment in that little playground is getting used a lot, and we need to replace it. So I am asking for a fee increase here so that we have some money to be able to replace the equipment. So then this is a chart for showing with our dance and fitness programs and where we fall. And so the rates that I'm kind of requesting that happen for 2025, it'll be kind of right there in the middle with our competitors. Here's our athletics. And for open gym, I'm asking for a slight increase for the adult rate, but it would stay the same for seniors. And cardio change a little bit. And then the fields, I'm asking for an increase with the youth grass fields. With our very popular turf soccer field, that you'll notice there that we can drop the, I'm recommending that we drop renting out half of that field. We set that up a few years ago because that soccer field has ball diamonds on the end, and so we thought that was going to be a little more popular where people would want to rent out those ball diamonds, and it's not that popular. Many people still love really our beloved E3 and our other ball fields, Evergreen 4 and 5. But with our anticipated turf ball field that we're excited about coming next year, I have a rate on here. And this is done from market research is where I came up with these rates and what our competitors are doing. Racquetball, I'm recommending to actually kind of stay where it's at for 2024. You can see with the dog obedience classes, this is something that Rose has always supervised, very popular dog obedience classes with a reputable instructor, and those fees are far below what other dog obedience classes are doing out there. So we are recommending a rate change. And our basketball leagues and volleyball leagues, we have slides in here. Those were approved, and for the rates, I'm not recommending any higher.
So that's pretty much it for our fees. This is our timeline. Back on September 10th, we met with RPAC and went over the presentation. RPAC recommended that we move forward and bring it to council for approval, hopefully. And then tonight, October 24th, we are presenting our fee schedule and recommended changes to you. And then we don't quite have the date yet, but in November it will be on an agenda to be approved as part of the budget approval process. And then, so our recommendation for tonight is to review and provide feedback for future approval.
Councilmember Payne Donovan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you everyone for the great presentation. I think I'll try not to mix the last two presentations, but as the child of a pool operator, I have great confidence that our pool will stay up and running for as long as we need it to. And also just want to give kudos to the panel that's in front of us right now. I hear, from friends, whether they live in Everett or Seattle or anywhere in between, really frequently about all the services that we provide be it at the pool or for childcare or any of the other line items that you just presented about. So really, as a council member out in the world, the things that you and your staff do really bring me personal pride, and I hope that you get that as well on a daily basis, because we provide some really great services on at an affordable rate. And I want to come back to my for my first question. I want to come back to something that Councilmember Murray raised, and this is sort of about the attrition that might or however you want to characterize this, sort of the impact of raising rates on those who are currently using our services. What do you think the impact of this, maybe in some cases like roughly 10% increase might be? And then so I guess that's my first question. So would love to hear your thoughts on what you think the impacts might be, and if you can sort of parse that out in terms of impact on residents as well as non-residents, that would be great.
Yeah, no, great comments. Thanks for that. I'm not sure, I'm guessing right now. We always know, as I mentioned, that there will be attrition. You're not going to get everybody to continue over. The one thing we do have going for us is we have a pool, and there are not very many pools. And so we know we offer a quality program. We're not just relying on the fact that we have a pool, and we try to provide a really good program. So we think that those different programs that are quality that we provide are going to continue to attract people to come back to the pavilion. And based on the recommendations that we have and different comparisons that we have, we think that they will come back in a high percentage. I don't know if I want to say what percentage we think that'll be, but I would definitely say at least a 10% increase the revenue will take. We're doing a 20% rate increase, but we're probably more at 60, 70%. You're going to lose some people that are going to compare you to other programs now that you're closer or maybe you're a little more expensive. We do have that built-in, I think a little bit of a built-in audience though, especially also for childcare. Especially when you compare, our direct competitor is charging way more than we are. And I feel like we have a very good quality program too. So it's a very tough, I think, recommendation for me to make to say whether, what percentage we'll keep, but.
Well, I appreciate it. And then I'll quickly shift to two less serious questions. And first being sort of in my short time here on council, you see line items like racquetball and stuff that I don't really personally see myself participating in, but it's, do you ever see or do you ever think about the opportunity to shift to other programming in the spaces that are there, whether it be at the field or within the pavilion? And then I was also curious about what the overnight rental was. I'm just wondering what that looks like. Could council throw an overnight party with a DJ if we wanted to? What is that? What does that historically look like?
Go ahead.
We're laughing because we're looking at faces.
Okay.
Rory, we were laughing at anything you said. We were just laughing at the faces what we were making at each other.
Okay, the overnight rental was something that was used a lot by Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts predominantly. And they would have about 3 hours in the pool, and then in usually the Riverview room, the rest of the night to do games and things like that. And it would take, about 3 or 4 lifeguards at the beginning and then 2 staff all night long, which if you're going from 8 o'clock at night until 7 o'clock the next morning, that's a long haul. And, with a lot of our staff are, under 17 and they're 15 and 16, we can't work them past midnight. And And we don't have the abundance of staff that we used to have. So what we've been doing instead is having those groups do after-hours rentals where we can go up until 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, and we can still do the same thing. They just don't get to sleep in the pavilion overnight. So,
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
And I can tell you about racquetball. So we used to have 6 racquetball courts. In 2002, when we did our major renovation, we took 3 of those courts and repurposed them to an indoor playground, a dance and fitness room, and a multipurpose room. So we did that. And now currently, with the reduction in participation in adult sports across the board, but racquetball specifically, we are trying other things like volleyball clinics. We're even dabbling in some pickleball in there, so.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so Councilmember Sunmore first.
And I was paying attention when you were talking about fees, but I also saw it on September 10th when we went over this. And so I wanted to thank you for that. And money is always one of those things that's hard to talk about, and we have to be really, I think it causes a lot of family feuds too, you know, so, but I wanted to bring up some good things about what our Park and Rec does. And one of the things that we talked about is offering a 10% discount to our residents. And I believe that's something that was just brought up by one person, but we do a little bit of discount, but not making it any more because we really have to count those dollars, especially when we're looking at cost recovery. But I have to say, you guys are some of my favorite people, and what you do, and Selena too, as of what you guys do for our community, because we talked in depth about daycare and how we're overbooked, right? We could take on a lot more children, and I wish we could, and I hope their families are finding places for them, but especially we don't call it when they're on vacation, the camps. And we talked a lot about those. Danielle was talking about a lot about the camps and the overnight stay, Rose. We were talking about that, and we were saying, Rose, you know, no, because it's just not coming to fruition, and the Boy Scouts weren't using it as much, I don't think. And it's something that maybe was a little bit of a generation ago, but we also offer some discounts for, or I should say, low-income scholarships, and some of our daycare is state subsidized, if I'm saying it right. And one of the things I learned that was new that we should, you know, it comes, we offer this service, but it's paid for the Silver Sneakers, is that right? And so they can come and use the pavilion for free. So sometimes when we're looking at money, we kind of have to look at the other, I don't want to say perks, but the other fill-ins that we offer from our pavilion. And so with that, I'm really proud of all the work you guys do. Renee, you've been doing it for so long, Danielle, Rose, Jeff, and Andrew, and Selena's new, and we talk a lot about this, and some of our Park and Rec meetings go a long time. And so I was paying attention, but I had seen part of it before, so I was just looking up some other stuff.
Councilmember Murray.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you all. Appreciate us looking for ways to, you know, I think ensure that we are thinking about being marketable and thinking about cost recovery. I know that's something we've talked about in the past, and that's important. And, you know, I will say in kind of initial look at some of these numbers, some of them are hard to think about. I think particularly in terms of childcare, as I think about people who have committed to a childcare solution for the year for themselves, and we're talking about significantly increasing rates in 2 months from now that are significantly more than we had approved from last year. So are we talking about for January, or does that not go into effect until the next school year? I guess that's a question, and then I'll...
So most of our rates do go in effect January, except for those school year programs. So that wouldn't be till September.
Perfect.
So we normally try to offset it so people have plenty of time to choose the program they would like at that time.
Perfect. Very helpful. Thank you. And then I guess I'm curious, and I think we've talked about this a little bit in the past, but I will ask again because I think it matters when we think about some of these rates in terms of I think we should absolutely charge what the market will bear when it comes to non-residents. I think when it comes to our residents who are also investing in these programs with their tax dollars, and whom we have looked for ways to prioritize. I know you guys do try really hard to ensure that our residents have the opportunity before non-residents do for signing up, and, you know, appreciate that we offer a resident rate when lots of communities don't. You know, and I will say, you know, as we think about increases, I'm supportive of gradual increases, and it's harder when we're looking at a large increase like 20%, even if that's because perhaps for a number of years we haven't increased it at the cost of offering some of those services. So I guess I'm curious if we have numbers around, you know, resident usage versus non-resident usage, and when we think about kind of the potential budgetary impacts of charging a more marketable rate for non-residents perhaps, but perhaps charging a closer to what we had approved rate perhaps for residents, and thinking about kind of a more gradual increase around some of those numbers. I guess I'm curious if we have any idea how that might shake out.
Yeah, we typically say that the largest single group that utilizes the pool are Mountlake Terrace residents. But that percentage is probably in the 50% range. I think it probably has fluctuated over time, but it used to be more in that range. And then you'd have little bits of each of the other communities that filled in that gap. But it really depends on each individual program, because childcare is, you know, there's Edmonds residents too, because we have a site in Madrona, but there are quite a few residents of Mountlake Terrace that are pretty much just using that service, like Terrace Park School. Those kids are coming to the pavilion for childcare. And then most of our camps most of them are Mountlake Terrace residents as well, a high percentage. I think the biggest regional service we do is swim lessons and drop-in swim. But for exact percentages and things like that is something that we could probably look into, see what our system could pull out.
Okay. And yeah, I would take ballpark even. I think that would be interesting to think about in terms of some of these proposed increases. So yeah, that would be very, very helpful if we could get that for sure. So, and I think that is it for my questions for now. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you, Councilmember Murray, for raising the non-resident rate discussion. I'd also like to see more information on that, and what would be, and I'd like to see some numbers on, in the future, you know, maybe not for this go around, but next time we review the rates in next year, I'd really be interested in what the difference would be budget-wise with running some numbers of, if recognizing that we need to keep up the costs and offsetting revenues with fee increases, what would the numbers be if we were did the total increase on non-residents? So in other words, if we're increasing residents from, you know, $3 to $3.25 or $3.50, and we're doing a similar rate increase for non-residents, what if we just kept the $3 and put it all on the non-residents? And then what would those numbers, if we ran those numbers, what would it look like? And what would it look like, you know, then you start talking about the attrition and, you know, the percentage of non-residents utilizing services, how many of those would fall off. But I'd just really be interested in seeing some numbers on that. And in addition to, so maybe we do one with, you know, a resident and non-resident increase like we normally do, but then have a separate one estimating what it would be with just putting all the costs on non-residents. Also interested in, I want to go to the child care or daycare slide and come and talk about that a little bit. But before I do, and maybe this was in the previous discussion, I just should have raised it then, is the neutral zone and the youth team programs and things like that that we had talked about expanding, and I guess that it might be part of the fee comparison, but we were talking about running it for free, right? So that would just, there's no fees on that, so maybe it was during the recreation discussion I should have brought this up. But we've talked about and entertained the idea of bringing that back. Where are we at on that, and is that something that is in the budget or should be considered to put in the budget?
Was that mostly volunteers?
Yeah, I mean, internally here, we have not talked about that. I think that the council retreat, that was something that we spoke about, but
And several
I think
council meetings.
Pardon me?
And several council meetings.
Yes, several council meetings. I think that the main issue with launching a program such as that is having a space. And that was one of the things we talked about for the seniors, is to make sure they had a space. So we need a space for teens to go. And so the neutral zone, they used to have it at the school, right? They used to have it at Terrace Park School at one time, I think, when it was active here. But a lot of teens don't want to go somewhere where they don't go to the preschool room to hang out, or they don't want to go where the seniors are. So it's really, you need a space dedicated is the main issue with teen programming. But we have talked about teen programming in general, and I know that we are looking at ways to bring more teens into our programs, and we've talked about some things related to that. And so I think that's on our radar, but a standalone program, we haven't, crunched any numbers on that. I think my main concern is trying to find a place for it to be.
Okay, so that's a discussion I guess we'd like to pursue at another time, but particularly as we're talking about replacing the rec pavilion, that seems like the obvious place in the future, right? Mm-hmm. So let's make sure that that's part of the discussion during our, as we're looking at what to do with how to move forward with rec pavilion. But I definitely would like to, I guess, maybe, I don't know if there's something we can be doing in between, because it's going to be a few years before we are able to replace the rec pavilion. But I would like to see us have a discussion about how we might pursue something sooner than when we're going to have that in place. All right, so childcare. Was it this? Yeah, it might have been the next. There, that was a slide that I was looking at where, so the per hour resident rate for Linwood is $7.30, and we're looking to increase that to $5.63, right? But the monthly rate is substantially more than Linwood.
Linwood's program is only 2.5 hours a day. I think it's the big difference. In our program, they can be into up to 10 hours.
Okay, I see. So down that the important thing is that bottom line there, as opposed to the 7 to 10 hours per day.
Right, and that fee is for 10 hours, the one that's listed there, the monthly fee.
Okay.
10 hours in our program per day.
All right, so a couple of follow-up questions on that is I would be really interested in running some numbers on what, if recognizing and kind of going back to the previous discussion and leaving the non-resident increases alone, letting that fly by, but I would love to see some numbers of what the impact would be on our bottom line, but budget, the fund, the line item in the recreation budget, if we maintained the same amount for preschool as we currently do today. I'd love to see a side-by-side difference on what the impact would be if we maintained the same rate right now. And then the follow-up, if it is a huge impact that we need to make up, I guess my follow-up question would be, what is our budget for grants or discounts for at-risk, lower income, et cetera? And how much, what is the amount we have available there? And should we consider expanding that? I mean, getting back to Councilmember Sommer's point, I'd love to see us serving, this is a huge issue that we discussed during COVID, that we know and recognize there's a huge need out there for childcare and services at an affordable rate, and $1,000 a month, more than $1,000 a month for low income. I mean, that's a third of their income in many cases, right? They can't afford that. So how, and do we have any idea out of that what percentage are lower income of those that are currently utilizing our services? And is there any way to figure that out? I'd love to see, us, at any rate, I'd love to see get more information on that. And see, that gets back to another thing that I'd like us to be exploring more is identifying who our at-risk residents are so that we know who they are and what services that we need to be providing for them. So that's a whole nother discussion that we need to be having in general, but it relates to this topic very closely, and that's where I think it's important for us to know how many of our residents are in need of this service, how many of our residents are currently utilizing this service that can't afford it. How are we covering those fees? What kind of funding do we have available currently in the budget to be able to help discount or waive fees, provide grants for those that are in need? And I guess for future discussion, figuring out how we can increase or expand our services there and provide greater discounts to those in need.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There are, and maybe I should be remiss in not explaining in detail the scholarship program. We know we mentioned it as part of our goals. And so we had ARPA-funded scholarship program during this current cycle. And that was the first time we had a city-backed scholarship program. Before that, we've always had a donation-based system, the Michelle Ringler Scholarship Fund. And so we typically receive a couple $1,000s in that program, and that can be utilized by anybody in Edmonds School District, that donation fund. The ARPA fund, as approved by council, the policy states that they needed to be Mountlake Terrace residents. And so this new scholarship fund would follow that exact same policy that we established for the ARPA scholarship program. And if you remember, the ARPA one was $10,000 per year. And so the first year we had a lot of people apply for it, and it was almost fully committed, but then only half of them used it. So we only spent around $5,000 of the first year. This year, we've committed much less of that. I don't know how much off the top of my head, but we're projecting to be around in the same range, which is why we're budgeting to be $5,000 for that scholarship program for 25 and 26.
How much of that was utilized for the child care programs?
I want to say, if I remember correctly, and this is going off my memory, I want to say one person used it for summer camp, a $250 scholarship for summer camp.
I'm going to suggest that there is a much bigger need out there. And again, I think that's probably a discussion for another day. Yes. But I look forward to having that discussion. I think it's necessary. We can be doing so much more to help those residents that are in need. We all know there's a huge unmet need for childcare services, and I think we can do better. That's not to say that we aren't doing a great job, and so following up on Councilmember Sommer's point, kudos, you guys do a great job with everything, really appreciate it. I just think we can do even better than we're already doing, particularly serving those in need. So that's, I guess, an area that I'd really like us to be spending a lot more time exploring.
Yeah, and this is the main reason why we proposed this $5,000 per year scholarship fund, is because of our rate increases, that we really wanted to be able to offer something to say, if you can't afford it, there's an option for you. And there's a point between when people in childcare are eligible for funding for childcare in general from the state, that if they take a scholarship fund, it will reduce their funding award from the state. So they can't take both. So that's kind of a conundrum for them, where they're needy enough to probably need the whole thing paid for, but they can't do it because they'll lose their funding from the state. So that is one of the issues. I think swim lessons was probably one of the larger scholarship recipients for the program.
And drop-in.
And drop-in rec swims, so a lot of rec swims paid with that. And then the dance program raises a lot of money for the Michelle Ringler Scholarship Fund themselves, so they're able to fund a lot of dancers. And so that's a great use of that program as well. So there are options, but I agree. I think working on some strategy, and I think a lot of it is trying to do our best to actually get out there and let people know the program exists. I felt like we did some news releases and we did a bunch of social and posted flyers, but I think rethinking our strategy would work too.
Yeah, I guess look forward to having a further discussion about that. I think there's more we can be doing, and I look forward to working through those and getting finding some additional solutions to get there. But appreciate everything you guys are doing. Thank you.
Okay, I don't see anyone else. Are you going to move on to the next?
Hey, you guys are done. Thank you. So now we're moving to, this should be Park Services. Right, Selena? Okay, so on to Park Services, and here to welcome also Park Supervisor Selena Williams. Let you introduce yourself. You've met council before, but.
Good morning, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Council. Nice to be here. I'm Selena Williams. I'm the Park Supervisor. Almost 6 months.
So she came after we built most of this, but she gets the pleasure of trying to present some of it. So, skip to the org chart here. So Park Services is primarily made up of neighborhood parks, athletic fields, and building grounds. And those are the different core areas that we budget to. There's much more beyond that, but this is how our org chart is represented within the operations and maintenance. So the system has 293 acres of park property, and the newest being a small parcel just south of Melody Hill. It was a former work site that Sound Transit acquired, and it's now the city's. It's around 14,000 square feet, so not enough to change the acreage number, but nevertheless, it's some extra green space in Melody Hill area. I know it's not the size that we would like in that area, but it is a start. So Park Services accomplishments, we'll let Selena review these ones.
Yeah. So like Jeff said, a lot of these accomplishments have happened before my time. So I just want to, recognize those who have been involved with these projects for years in the making. Donnell, the Parks Project Manager, the Parks crew on the ground, and a lot of people, amongst the different departments that have brought all this together. I'm just lucky that I get to show it off tonight. So in regards to growing our vibrant community, we got Veterans Memorial Park Upper Plateau to 60% design, which allowed us to go out for funding. So that's a huge success that we'll be starting next year. We also worked with the Garden Club on getting hanging baskets for 236th Street, which I feel really made the street pop. And then we also partnered with Andrew and assisted with a lot of the community events throughout the summer and the coming winter. The next goal of responsible government is to ensure desired levels of service. Like Jeff said, we maintain 293 acres of park property. It's a 5-person crew. There's a lot of learning going involved with all these new improvements that have been happening, such as the Ballinger Park boardwalk installation, the finish Hall Creek restoration, and the installation of the Hazel Miller Playground and trail construction. Continuing with the responsible governments, Bicentennial Park Playground installation and the final trail connection has been wrapped up. And also, oh, sorry, I lost my notes. With the completion of these projects, we're really learning about the evolution of these locations, like Ballinger, and the changes that are needed in the maintenance side of things. But we've got new lights up on Evergreen 5, so we're renewing the old and also just taking care of the infrastructure that we currently have.
Oh, go ahead. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. When we do get the Supersonics back, can we have a welcome home party at that court?
Yeah, let's do it.
Thank you.
Definitely.
Continuing with responsible governments to ensure desired levels of service. The future work at Veterans Memorial to connect the light rail to that park. We also have the continuation of the spring and fall cleanup events, and that's in partnership with the RPAC commissioners and everything. And we've applied and been awarded for over $1.3 million of park project funding in 2003 and 2023, sorry. And that's been, you know, why we've been able to accomplish so much in these last few years. I believe this might be the last slide for me. An informed and engaged community. Mountlake Terrace has a phenomenal relationship with the community. Tons of volunteer groups working in the parks, very active commissions. So we just want to, you know, continue moving that forward. We've had extensive, you know, public outreach for the design and planning of the accomplished parks and also the upcoming projects such as the Evergreen Playfield Complex and the Transit Connection Corridor.
Okay, so moving on to council goals and growing our vibrant community. So one of the park's objectives would be to continue to support and maintain the different parks and events that are going to be happening through there. So the parks crew do a ton of work on these events. They're preparing everything during the day, and Andrew's out there with them. But they do a lot of the hard work to make sure everything is good to go for those events. And it's a lot of the unseen things that make that big difference happen. And so that's a really good service that they're really willing to work on the weekends and the evenings to get that thing done. So we'll also continue to maintain those public spaces and keep them clean and keep them operating. So such as the water feature outside of here. And then additionally, additional goals include for growing our vibrant community, we'll continue to attempt to complete planned park improvements in town center by acquiring the necessary funding. So that would be essentially that's Veterans Memorial Park and the Upper Plateau improvements. And then additionally identify a pathway to redevelop the pavilion and continue providing recreation opportunities. So under responsible governance, one of the things that we are scheduled to do and propose would be that Recreation Park Open Space Master Plan to reevaluate levels of service, the capital improvement program, as well as a park impact fee rate study update. And then that RPOS update lets us be in compliance with Recreation Conservation Office grant guidance. So, and additionally, as IT mentioned earlier, we are working on an asset management system program in this next budget cycle. And we're proposing that would be through with Public Works and Parks as well as property management. So we can get a good idea of where our assets are and put them on GIS and know what kind of maintenance has been done, as well as especially related to risk management, to know what playground equipment's been serviced and how often, and those kinds of things are invaluable to us. So for responsible governance, we also want to continue to apply for grant funding for park property purchases and also improvements. And additionally, we want to increase our partnerships. So we're always looking for ways to leverage funding or also just partnerships in general. So I think there's a lot of opportunity out there for the city to partner with people, and we want to continue to leverage all those that we possibly can. So for an informed, engaged community, the Recreation Parks and Open Space Plan is all encompassing for us with a lot of community involvement and future planning. It's very important that everybody participates in that, and it really sets the agenda for that next cycle for us to apply for grants and keep an eye for the future. So we'll continue to also seek public input on all of our park projects. So for environmental sustainability and resiliency, for park projects, we're going to continue to evaluate climate and environmental protection as part of the development. And so that has to be incorporated into our design plans and communicated to our consultants. That's one of our goals. And then additionally, the city has an objective to update and implement the comprehensive emergency management plan as well as a hazard mitigation plan, and parks will also participate in that process. So some personnel changes. As we know, when Ken Cortmatch retired, we split his position into two. So there's a half full-time equivalent increase for supervisor in both parks and property management. Additionally, we moved the event coordinator from the parks budget into recreation fund. And then also part of this budget is to increase our part-time seasonal parks maintenance worker hours. We, in the past years, have had much more seasonal, and this last couple of budget cycles, we've reduced that number greatly. We only could hire one person, and he could only work for approximately 8 weeks this summer. And so we used to have 3 or 4 maintenance workers that were seasonal. It's a great job training opportunity. It really helps the city on keeping it clean and looking good. And this is going to be especially important as we install a new restroom. And so those areas need to be serviced with emptied on the weekends, and then additionally cleaning up litter, and the mowing and line trimming never stops in the summer. So definitely needed hours for that program. Other changes include, as we mentioned, the Recreation Parks Open Space Master Plan and Park Impact Fee update. There are park services retirements. We've had frontline workers with 43 years of experience retire, as well as supervisors. So there are shifts. We have new employees that are learning, they're getting training, and they're doing a great job. They're really enthusiastic, which is fantastic to see. So we just have to bring people along and let them shine, is really what we're trying to do. So that asset management software will be a whole new world for us as well, to try to shape into what works best for us, and then planning for the pavilion. So some of the financial summary key points here. Really, total expenditures have increased, and over the years they've increased because in the previous budget cycle we added a parks project manager, and so you'll see some increases due to that. Additionally, we added this half FTE during this cycle, and we also added that weekend parks worker a couple of years ago in the budget cycle before this. So those increases have made a difference to the budget, but also staff wages and benefits. But additionally, we've had some supply cost increase, definitely related to our restrooms and volunteer cleanups. We are using a whole lot more portable restrooms these days. You'll see them in a lot of our parks. And some of it is just really demand, and other ones are, well, for instance, the Lake Ballinger one caught on fire on the 4th of July, if everybody remembers that. So that one is no longer operational, but we will continue to utilize those services because it's really a big need in the community to try to get portable restrooms out there. And then utility costs have increased pretty dramatically across the board, as well as insurance and our contractual services fees. We are going to be really close to fully expended in our contractual services fees this year. And really, it's tree maintenance and tree removals are astronomical. The cost to remove a tree has gone up greatly. And so that's really front of mind for us because we've just done quite a few of them. And they're really hazard trees. It's not trees we want to remove for any reason other than safety. So other specific examples I mentioned is the turf field, or as we add projects and add amenities, those all have to be maintained. So we have the turf field at Evergreen 1. So we bought equipment when we did that, but additionally, there's other costs related to that. We have to fill in the rubber as it empties. So luckily, we still have some. We've invested in some of that, but the new turf field will not have crumb rubber. Potentially, it would have an organic material, so we'll need to have that material on hand to refill as it gets kicked out over time as well. So, yeah, there's as we invest in more capital, there will be additional costs beyond the actual maintenance worker costs, but there are, tow behind blowers and things like that to maintain trails that we are not used to. We have boardwalks that we've never maintained a boardwalk before. So there's interesting things that come up with all of these elements. So, and that is the end of parks maintenance. Do you have any questions?
Does anyone have any questions? Councilmember Murray, and then Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick one, Jeff. For the asset management software, are we looking at a standalone software that only covers parks, or is that something that we're looking at a holistic solution that works for like public works and other assets of the city as well?
Yeah, I mean, as far as I've heard in discussions with the deputy city manager and the city manager and the public works director, we're looking at something that's going to work for all of us, ideally. So they're the same system. I think IT would be happy if we could do that.
Awesome. Great to hear. Thanks.
Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And this is my generic request, again, for services and charges, just for each of the funds that you're covering today. Property management, capital improvement, back to parks and services, and back up to present recreation. Just a reminder that to get a breakdown of the of the services and charges line item to get a better understanding of what we're funding in there in each of those. Thanks.
Okay. I don't see anyone else.
Can I just
Oh,
ask
go
one
ahead.
question? So in 2024, we had an increase for the, for a supervisor, and then we took out the events coordinator in 2025, so next year. And then, so we've increased for the budget of 2025 to 26.33 of a part-time, full-time person for seasonal. But our budget goes up almost $100,000 in salary and wages. So is that almost $100,000 for the 0.33 increase for the part-time person, since we already moved out the coordinator out of the budget, and we've already established the supervisor half-time in 2024?
Yeah, the 2024 budget number, I'm not sure if that includes, if this number here includes making that change that council made a couple months ago when we switched to add half times. So I don't think, this is probably our original budget number, so it may be a little misleading that way. Also, it's not our actuals of where we're looking to be at, the 642. But the 0.33 FTE is $24,000 total, and we currently have budgeted $8,000. So it's not very much of an increase. That's not that full amount, but that's the difference that it makes up. It's about, what is that, $14,000 increase just for that FTE, the 0.33 FTE. The additional cost would be, part of that will be the halftime FTE. That's what I'm thinking, that's not included in this 24 budget number here, because that is a number, that's going to be the revised budget for 24. So at the end of the year, I'm sure this number is going to change when we make budget amendments. The actual budget documents get updated that way. But there are also salary increases that we've been talking about each presentation, not only with Teamsters, but non-reps that were made at the beginning of the year.
Okay. I don't see anyone else. Right. And you have one more?
Two more, Mayor.
Okay.
Okay, now moving on to property management. So I'm going to welcome Facility Supervisor Floyd Garrigus. You introduce yourself too? I just did, but go ahead.
My name is Floyd Garrigus, Facility Supervisor, Mayor Pro Tem, Council. I'm the supervisor that took half a Ken's job.
Okay, so just a couple of quick comments here to start us out. Property management is really one of those very important, but overall underappreciated, not by me, highly appreciated by me, but just in general, division of city operations. It just, without these staff and their efforts, nothing of anything that we do would be possible. And I could say that probably about IT and police, of course, but police efforts are not, police services probably are not possible without some of the things they do to make sure that they can go inside their office and have power. So definitely very much appreciated. There are some unique characteristics of our facilities, including the pavilion, which is 56 years old this November 24th. Many of the facilities have HVAC, roof, and other infrastructure demands that require quite a bit of maintenance and quite a bit of know-how, and sometimes just being able to type away on eBay and try to find things that no longer seem to exist anywhere else. But it is a special skill, so very much appreciated. The organizational chart includes just really all the facilities that are managed by property management. And the fire station, yes, is still on there. We still do own the fire station. We do still pay insurance, property insurance. So if something ever happened to the building, that it would be covered. So that is our responsibility still. So the mission statement, the function of the maintenance and operations is of all buildings and structures, and includes a bunch of different trades listed here, including custodial services and security systems, heating, cooling, and ventilation. Staff also perform maintenance and monitoring of our 160,000-gallon municipal pool. So now I'm going to hand accomplishments over to Floyd.
Okay, for growing our vibrant community, this facilities is implemented in tree lighting, Arts of the Terrace, Terrace Summer Nights. We support Andrew, make sure he has power for the bands. In the past, almost every year except, well, maybe this year too, we support our Tour de Terrace. We help set up. Okay, going on to responsible governance and insurance, a desired level of service. We have that facility condition assessment this year. Civic Campus Electric Vehicle Grant. We are in design of that. We've done some groundwork on that, and we've uncovered some important conduits that were supposed to be there but didn't know exactly where they were. So we've uncovered those to help with design and hopefully lower construction cost that we partnered with McKinstry with. Also, we had a police department interior remodel, cubicles, new floor, which they very much appreciated.
Hey, Floyd, can you move the microphone a little bit closer?
Oh, sorry.
Thanks.
Library entrance logo that matches our City Hall logo, which looks very well, very good. Continuing for responsible governance to ensure desired level of service, we were able to, in 23, replace an AC unit that does services Renee's office and the front office, which that was a very old unit. So she was very much appreciated to get AC back. We were able to replace the sauna this year, which was very old. It was the same wood was in there when I started in 2003. So this year, George, one of the facilities techs, he and Roy from Aquatics, they demoed the old wood for us, and then George re-insulated and reframed some of the framing that was needed to attach the new wood. And then we had Cedar Brook Saunas come in and do a phenomenal job, I thought. And if anybody hasn't been in there, you should go check it out. It's nice. Also, we have a plan for removal of parks, a maintenance shop down at Ballinger. That's going to be up and coming. With the fire that we had at the bathrooms, restrooms, the building is pretty much unusable. That's about it for accomplishments.
Okay, and then moving on to goals for growing our vibrant community. So we want to remove as many ADA barriers in our facilities as we can. So that's on our work plan as well. One of the places we want to focus on is the clubhouse, and that's really just because of the senior population. And it's not only seniors, but there are a lot of seniors that utilize that facility. So we want to take a good look and make sure that we're trying to revise everything that we need to make sure there's no barriers. We want to continue to also to maintain public spaces and keep them clean. Also, additionally, we want to identify a pathway to redevelop the pavilion. Also, responsible governance, we would want to, proposing to add an asset management system for facilities. Now, This one potentially could be in line with the rest of the cities. The one difference for facilities is it doesn't line up in a GIS-based system as well as the other, like Public Works and Parks would. So we need to make sure it works specifically for facilities management. And then additionally, we need a work order request software. So how do we let people know there's a problem and trying to communicate with them? It's via email right now, but there's better ways to do things that might be a better tracking system. Additionally, we're going to continue to seek funding opportunities to leverage those city resources. We know that we potentially could get some grants and energy conservation grants and things like that for facilities, so we want to continue to look at that. And then for an informed, engaged community, we want to continue to ensure that all of our projects that we're for new planning or design, we have strong communication, and that we're also speaking to the community pretty consistently about things that they want. I mean, if we're replacing a roof, that's probably pretty straightforward. Not as much community input needed unless who knows, maybe we want to do metal and people wouldn't like that. I don't know, but if we're going to redesign or look at program changes, I think that's essential. So environmental sustainability and resiliency, well, above all for this, for facilities, we want to continue to install energy efficient systems. We don't want to go backwards. We know that some of our systems are really old. And so as we replace things, we want to modernize as much as possible, save energy, and really just add to that resiliency of the city. So personnel changes, it's very similar to parks in this fashion, that it's a half-time FTE increase for the supervisor change. And then other changes would be that asset management and work order software. And then we have major capital projects going on that we'll talk about in the next presentation at police, the clubhouse, and city hall. And then we've had staff retirements as well in property management. So Ken again, but also Barry Dolan retired this year. So a lot of years going out the door to go camping. So for the financial summary, there's a few key points I wanted to highlight here. So costs are allocated in this fund by building, even though we do not charge City Hall for that. It's not an internal services fund in that way, but it's just a way to track our expenses per building. And so we're showing a 25% increase in insurance costs for property management. So property management also gets that property insurance charge as well. It's not just insurance related to employees or other things, but there is an actual property charge. So additionally, we're seeing that there's an increase in custodial supplies. We've budgeted an 11% increase because not everything was always estimated perfectly for this facility, and we're continuing to try to adjust those things for City Hall. The first budget cycle, when this place was open, we tried adding a whole lot more money up front for potential cubicle remodels or anything that we thought maybe we didn't know what we would need coming in a new building. And so we've reduced those back down. So you can see some of that drop, but there are other things that we underestimated, and that would be how much custodial supplies we would need. So also, one of the big ones is an increase in repair and maintenance supplies. And a lot of that is due to equipment that is just aging in a lot of facilities, especially the recreation pavilion. We just fixed a boiler that was about a $5,000 repair. And that's just one boiler getting it back operational. It's been out for a few months until that point. So just a part that took months to get here. So staffing costs, of course, and then additionally, utilities. Utilities hit facilities hard because that's where a lot of those utility costs come out. So some of the facilities costs are spread to utility funds. So only in relation to the operations facility where the utilities are located as well, they pay their fair share of that. But the rest of it is a general fund expense. So you can see the reimbursement from utilities listed here as a revenue, essentially. Are there any questions?
Councilmember Sonmore?
Never turned it off. So we have 78% cost recovery with the pavilion. We're almost going to be inching up to $1 million probably by 27, 28. I'm assuming that's not included in the cost recovery.
No.
So if we did include that in the cost recovery, it would go way down.
Yes.
And then just a follow-up, what all do we need to do City Hall? We have a brand-new City Hall, and I'm seeing over $300,000. And if I was a citizen, I would be asking, why do cubicles changes cost like $300,000?
No, I think what I meant to say, and maybe it didn't come across very well, was that during the last budget cycle, the one we're in now, I should say, 23 and 24, we knew that there could be some changes right after we moved in, and we wanted to continue to try to budget for building improvements if there was something that we forgot moving into this building that we would need. We are not proposing to, some of those are decreasing, but there are other elements that are increasing related to this facility. And some of them, there are things that are balancing each other out, but there are quite a few increases. And one of those things are, we found some areas that we know we're going to have to do some work on, like the soffits at City Hall. In some recent investigation, we found some damage to them already. And so those are some things we're looking to repair, and we know that there's going to be future repairs similar to that. They're not under warranty. There is no warranty for City Hall.
Well, I'm just thinking of that city that just had to shut down their City Hall because of some bad work. And so I'm praying that we're not going to find that, because that would be horrible.
Bless you.
Anyone else? Oh, Councilmember Murray.
Thank you, Mayor.
Bless.
Bless you. Just a quick question. Sorry, and I was going to say maybe it's the right question for now, but where is, as far as revenue goes from, because we still receive some revenue from the rental of the Ballinger Center, correct? No? We gave all that up?
There's no fee now.
Okay, all right. I think that it's still on our website, so that might be something to take a look at as far as rental of the Lakeview room.
That should, I think maybe it references in there to call the seniors to rent it.
Maybe, okay, maybe worth taking a look at, but that could absolutely be. Okay, that was my question.
One lease that we do receive money for now is Snow 911.
Okay.
So there is a lease amount that comes back to the city for that, and that's a general fund line item.
Okay, that's in the general fund. Thank you.
And the 911 center is part of the Public Works facility. Do you include that all in there? Or
Yeah, it's in the same location that it's been the whole time. It's just now they're leasing that out to themselves. We're leasing that out to them. So yes, it is, it's not necessarily connected, but it is. It's adjacent.
Well, okay.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it. Sorry, one other question. I guess in thinking about, we talked through internal services and kind of the fact that Parks and Recreation hadn't traditionally been charged for the property maintenance, and now is looked at the same way as the other facilities within our city. I guess I'm curious why not the inverse, as far as like, why is IT an internal service, whereas property maintenance is not an internal service? And maybe this is a Jeff Knighton question, but I guess I'm curious, and I don't know if that's just kind of the standard way most municipalities do it, but I guess I'm curious why those are kind of general fund, kind of charges versus an internal service model like IT.
So we can look at an internal service model for facilities in the future, but it's incremental changes. We're not trying to wholesale change the entire document or the way things are done, but we are doing tweaks at this point to make our operations more transparent. Eventually, we'll have to divvy up City Hall by square footage for each department to pay for it. But we don't want to make those wholesale changes all at once.
Fair enough. Okay. Yeah, I was just curious if there was a difference. So, okay, that's how we are doing it at this point in time, and something maybe to take a look at for future budgets. Great. Thank you.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just following up on the 911 center, the operations facility is in the Public Works budget?
No, the operations, well, it depends on what you were talking about specifically of the operations
I
facility.
guess, well, this slide here is referring to the maintenance costs, right?
Yes.
Not capital costs, so maintenance costs
Yes.
of various facilities, but I don't see operations center as a facility here, so I'm assuming it's in somewhere, another budget somewhere.
It's labeled differently here. I think finance labeled a public works facility, but
Okay.
we call it operations facility typically, but yes. That's the same building right there.
Got it. Perfect. Thank you. And so, yes, so that is the maintenance costs of the Public Works facility, but we know we've got capital costs that we need to, so that's in the next conversation?
There is information about capital, but maybe not directly to that building.
But we don't have the fund.
Yes.
We don't have it funded, so it's not
Right.
going to be part of the budget for next year. Got it. Thank you.
Okay.
And Mayor, I'd recommend just taking 5 minutes or so.
At this moment?
Yeah, before the next presentation. We've been going 2 hours and 10 minutes already. I think we can take 5 minutes.
Let's take 5 minutes and be back by
9:15. 9:16.
9:16.
Recording stopped.
What time are we coming back, Mayor? Okay, I'll start it again.
Recording in progress.
Okay, we're back. And we can continue with our next presentation.
Okay, good evening again. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members, I'm Jeff Betts, Recreation and Parks Director, and with me is Project Manager Donnell Dial. And I should let you introduce yourself as well. I just did.
Hi, I'm Donnell Dial. I'm the Parks Project Manager.
Good. All right, so our purpose tonight is to cover the Capital Improvement Fund. And this is what I call general fund projects, so to speak. It's none of the utilities. And so this presentation will cover that 6-year capital improvement fund as it relates to the 25-26 projects. So this is a lot of numbers. I get it. But this slide represents, it's a general summary of the revenue needs for the grant projects that are proposed. And so overall, there's about $8.5 million in projects proposed for 25, a little over that, and $3.5 million in 2026. The fund sources ranges from different elements that you're very familiar with. There's REIT 1 and REIT 2 listed here. There are park impact fees, different funding sources, including Recreation and Conservation Office funding. So there's also other sources in here. You could see PSRC's, Puget Sound Regional Council. So forgive all the acronyms, just trying to fit everything into this list. FHWA is Federal Highway Administration. So those revenues for the different projects, and some of the prior year ones are actually projects that will finish in 25. So that's why they're listed in prior year. Additionally, the proposed expenditures, they cover many different projects, but it includes one of these projects, the ones that we're going to go over tonight, but includes that zoning code update, and then additional ones such as various park projects and property management projects. So those projects, a lot of them and the grant funds related to them are dependent on city staff applying for those grants and being successful. And so if we are not successful, many of them do not move forward until we find money. So most of these projects are not able to be funded solely by city REIT funds or any of the park CIP funds that we've used for wireless fees or things like that. There just isn't enough to achieve that. And park impact fees can't be used to fund all of a project. It's just whatever's related to growth. So that most of them need matching funds, which comes in the form of grants. So the first project on here is a zoning code update coming from CED. And so this project, in order to comply with the comprehensive plan, middle housing plan, and changes to state laws, it's proposed to begin in 2025 and finish in 26. So it spans both years, this effort to update the zoning code. So
Did you want to ask now? Okay, we have a question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On the zoning update, previous slide.
Yeah, it's kind of malfunctioning on me.
Yeah, it's not looking good, is it? Anyway, so obviously that is Commerce, thinking State Commerce, no, our Department of Community Economic Development. So that's where the primary funding for that is. I'm expecting that there's a design, we need to do some design work and some design standards for the interface between the parks and the new development around the town center, like Veterans Park particularly. Is that what that's referring to, or why is this in the capital?
I would let the Deputy City Manager explain.
I can chime in. So our new finance director and consultant recommended that this project move into the CIP because it is a one-time large expense related to future capital development, private and public. But it is the zoning code update that will relate to implementation of the comprehensive plan, several pieces of legislation that passed in the past year, and the design standards like you spoke about.
Okay, and this is the consultant fee that we're expecting
Yes.
to,
Yeah.
for doing all that work.
Mhm.
Got it. And, okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay, and then the next project is the pavilion needs assessment, and then also we see further out, as far out as I could put it, in 2030, is the recreation pavilion construction itself, as estimated in the Recreation Park Open Space Master Plan, and it's in the unfunded category. The next one is small park amenities. It's that annual investment that the city's made in those small park amenities for many, many years. And these are funds that the Neighborhood Park Improvement Subcommittee makes recommendations to Recreation Parks Advisory Commission. And it's just as a means to replace small elements. You remember the Terrace Ridge Playground that was replaced last year was utilizing this funding source. And then also previous years, we've done trail connections with it. And it's really just a way for the community to tell us what they want. And even though it's small elements, it's just things that can improve. This year, they've been talking quite a bit about different ideas. And one of them is improvements to firefighters' playground equipment. And then another option is to improve by adding more benches and picnic tables, especially ADA picnic tables at various parks.
And then Evergreen Playfield Complex, you're probably familiar with, but this is the next round of improvements for the 8-acre complex. In 2020, 2021, we did the multi-sport turf field to the north. This past summer, we upgraded the lighting at Evergreen Playfield 5, replacing the old metal halides with LED fixtures. The next phase of work will convert the playfield number 3 ball field that you see here in the picture, converting the infield to turf, replacing the fencing, lighting, removing the bleachers, improvements to existing pathways, replacement of the storage facilities and the restroom and concession stand, also upgrades to the tennis courts. There's the 3 tennis courts down on the lower portion and the single court up above. Refinishing those, fencing, lighting, pathway improvements around those as well.
And pickleball.
And pickleball, yes, relining the upper one for pickleball. The RPOS update that has been mentioned a couple times throughout the evening. So in response to future planning for and eligibility for RCO grants and future projects, we need to update this. It's a requirement every 6 years to be eligible. So we'll start that endeavor in 2026 and spend some time engaging with the community, providing updates as needed, and in lieu of completing a park planning component, this will include a review and update to the park impact fees as well.
We just talked about the pavilion, about not knowing when it would go down, but here we have a plan that we're replacing it supposedly in 2030. And then we also have pavilion needs assessment building 200,000 in 2025 and a liner in 200,000 in 2025. So I'm assuming that that isn't in the rec budget, and this is an additional $400,000. So it would put us well over $1 million for 2025 for the pavilion.
No, so this 200,000 in the capital plan is to do a pavilion needs assessment. So it's just the first step we would need to do to start taking a look into what we would need to build or partner to build or whatever direction was moved forward. We need to figure out what the needs of the community are. So that's a general fund expenditure listed here.
And then the liner is different too?
Yes, the liner is not listed in here.
And then shouldn't the roof also be with parentheses, that is with ARPA funds, because we're paying it out of ARPA funds?
Which we're doing the roof at the police station. That'll be next. It'll be down a few slides down. RPOS, pool liner.
Yeah.
There it is.
Here's the pool liner that you were just talking about, I think. So we've seen indications that the pool liner is in need of repair in several locations. There's bubbles forming under the liner, which can lead to tears. There are also challenges with some of the current tiles in need of replacement. Some of the tiles on vertical walls are no longer available and cannot be installed. So now we need to look at new tile on the vertical walls and replacement of the bubbles or repairs of the bubbles on the liner. We would look at doing both these projects simultaneously to minimize the closure, and looking, I think, about 8 weeks to complete both these projects, and we're budgeting $200,000.
So the one that you were looking at before, that was a different project. That was the planning. So this one is the pool liner, and it was scheduled for 26. It's just recently that we've discovered even more issues. So we, prepared this presentation originally a few weeks ago, and things have happened since then to make us think that we might need to do something sooner. And so really just trying to, I think the discussion internally was just around trying to be proactive on that issue instead of being reactive and waiting till 26. But we need to do some more in-depth analysis to figure out the right path, I think. I don't think any decision's been made. It would always be approved by council anyway. That kind of item would come to council for review.
Evergreen Playfields 4 and 5. This is for the infrastructure. This was one of the projects that we applied for RCO grant in the 2024 cycle for the COAF, Community Outdoor Facility grant. And this is to upgrade infrastructures such as drainage, irrigation, fencing, backstops, dugouts, benches, and replace the accessible pathway that connect, or I guess it goes around the perimeter of those accessing Field 4. This was a great opportunity with no match, and the grant limit was $1.2 million, only requiring $200,000 from the city to do some of the design work and construction services, like inspections and materials testing. We've ranked 9 out of 17, which unfortunately, based off of the funding that they have to support it, it looks like only the first 2 projects would be going forward. Ballinger Viewing Trails and Platform. So after completing the Hall Creek project earlier this year, installing an amazing boardwalk and vehicle bridge and nature area with new plants, we're building off of that on the west side with additional trails and pathways, making connections from the boardwalk and the vehicle bridge out to the interurban trail. A mulched interior trail kind of taking you through some of the natural area, and then installing a viewing platform out over the water for wildlife and aquatic life viewing. There'd be a new portal entry on the west side coming off of the interurban trail, very visible, identifying that entryway from the west side. This is one of our projects where we've received a fair amount of support from multiple funding partners. We have, again, Recreation and Conservation Office funds. We've got funding from Primera Blue Cross, our neighbors in the city of Edmonds, and then city support as well. Oh, sorry, I was just going to say that is also one that's on the agenda for construction next summer. Transit Connection and Corridor Project. This is one of our larger projects with 3 pieces to it, or 3 parts to it. We've got the Veterans Memorial Park trails where we're paving and illuminating pathways with multiple connections, 60th, 58th, and then down to the Mountlake Terrace Transit Center. That's slated for construction early next year. We're working on the design of the pedestrian plaza over at 236 and Van Rye Boulevard. which is the image here, a hardscape and landscaped landing area or gathering space for commuters, and working on securing the land for that. The third and final piece is a trail extension that would extend basically out from the southwest corner, the exit point of Veterans Memorial Park out to 236, getting people all the way through the park out to the MLT Transit Center. We do have several pieces of, or several funding sources for this. Puget Sound Regional Council Transportation Alternatives Program. We have a fair amount from Sound Transit, and we also have federal highways funding. Budgeting over close to $6 million, this project is almost funded completely with outside resources. This is a project that's a little bit further out, but on the agenda for planning. As playgrounds age, it becomes difficult to find parts and replacement pieces in order to maintain the facilities. Terrace Creek is one of these locations where we want to get planning underway in this next biennium and prepare for additional funding opportunities and grant opportunities in the upcoming years. So this project would focus on the replacement of the existing playground and addition of a permanent restroom facility, as we were talking earlier about the number of portable restrooms that we have out there. This definitely is an area that we could probably use a permanent solution. Other areas we'd be looking at repaving the walking loop and maybe revamping the parking area and then replacement of the picnic shelter. This playground's well loved and has the space to do some planning to identify these new park elements. So we've identified $200,000 in 2025 to start that endeavor and work on getting prepared for future grant opportunities to support construction. Evergreen Playfield 4. This is a lighting project and was also part of one of the grant applications that was submitted this year in the 2024 cycle. So this field is directly adjacent to Evergreen Playfield 5, just north of the pavilion. It's a lighting project that would install completely new lights. There's no lights currently on Playfield 4. We just retrofitted and replaced or added a couple lights over on Field 5. So this would install a couple new poles and then add additional lighting on those center field type poles, sharing some of that both directions and lighting up both Evergreen Playfield 4 and Evergreen Playfield 5. And then you'd be able to use that multi-sport interior field if you wanted to for soccer or other activities. Playfield 6, this is the field inside the track just south of 224th where Tour de Terrace is held. This project is a little ways out as well with an RCO grant application in the future for the lighting. We'd be installing 4 new poles to light up this soccer field, project estimated around $500,000. Veterans Memorial Park Upper Plateau. So we talked about the Transit Connection Corridor project, which is going to pave and illuminate pathways throughout the interior of the park. This is up on the upper portion near the playground. We did apply for WWRP, Washington Wildlife and Recreation Program funding, and LWCF, Land and Water Conservation funding with Recreation and Conservation Office this past year. Seeking support to fund this project. We spent the latter part of 2023 and early parts of 2024 working with the community and our design team to develop design to about a 60% phase. The project itself focuses to replace the playground. We're looking at reconstructing that frontage, getting rid of the rockery and making it more accessible from the street parking. improvements to the accessible pathway, making it accessible and lighting that. We worked with the American Legion Post 234 and got their input on the existing and future memorial and flagpoles. And there's a little plaza space down on the southeast corner as well. As I said, we applied for grant funding. I think we're on the cusp for our WWRP funds, and we might be just outside for the LWCF, but we'll have to see how the legislative budget turns out.
Okay, and then next project is the clubhouse. And so this is just starting now. The design of it is anyway. We received a $50,000 grant from Snohomish County for HVAC improvements. And so this project, as I mentioned, just starting design and gather costs related to the project, and hopefully we can achieve this next year. Police, fire, and City Hall's generators is funded with ARPA, and it was started in 2023 for design work, and fire is reimbursing us for half of the standby generator that would be utilized for fire and police, replacing the existing one. That new generator would supply power to both buildings completely. Currently, it only powers about half of each building. So it would be a really big improvement. Additionally, this funding would install a temporary generator for City Hall to avert any power outages. So the police roof and HVAC, so this is underway as well. Council approved this project earlier this month, and we're moving forward currently still with executing the contract with McKinstry. And so we should be doing a kickoff meeting next month. Trees for Parks, this project has been on the horizon for a number of years. Really, Sound Transit paid mitigation fees for removal of trees within city limits a few years ago. And so this funding source and the agreement for fee in lieu, that'll really allow us to plant hundreds of trees at Bicentennial, Ballinger, and Terrace Creek Park. So this last year, staff put together a tree planting plan with the assistance of a consultant and RPAC. And so that is ready to go, and we're working currently, right as we speak, to get this project out to bid. So I'll just give a brief background on the unfunded CIP.
Oh. Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Before our jaw drops on the unfunded portion, what is the Fund 322? That's just
That's the capital improvement
fund, which is funded by a number of different sources.
Right.
So how is the zoning code update funded through the capital improvement fund? Which revenue source is funding the capital improvement fund to pay for the zoning code update?
It's a general fund funded item. In the very top column, it says general fund.
Okay.
And so general fund can make contributions to cover projects in the capital improvement.
Got it. Okay. So that would be a line item from the general fund expenditure going to the capital improvement fund. And it's just the idea of putting it in the capital improvement fund is just because it's a one-time. Okay. Thank you. Sorry.
No problem. So the unfunded CIP. And so the next five slides represent the unfunded projects in the city. The largest amount, highest ranking project is listed on the top here, and that is the Recreation Pavilion. By all accounts, is in the most demand and the project that's most in need, and that's listed at $45 million. And that's just based on the last Recreation Park Open Space Master Plans estimates, really updates of what we did before. The library roof and HVAC project is actually ranked number 2 on this list. And then so on and so on. You can see the project's rankings here, and so this is organized in that fashion. So the list totals, and I'm just gonna kind of fly through this list here. It totals $78 million over the next 6 years, unfunded. And so they do not include also, just to reiterate, they don't include all the soft costs, which sometimes are almost double what we expect them to be. Additionally, a lot of these are conceptual estimates. We haven't done any design work to know what these costs actually are. They're planning level estimates. So we did utilize the energy study that we did with McKinstry for the facilities to assist with those estimates, and then also the RPUS as mentioned for parks. Questions?
Do we have any questions? Excuse me. Do we have any questions or comments? We're going to have a Tassoff trail.
I'm sorry?
I saw a Tassoff trail, when we bought Mr. Tassoff property.
Yes.
Is there going to be a trail through there?
Absolutely. There's plans for there to be a trail across Tassoff's property, and we're currently working with PUD to make part of that happen. So we've been in the planning discussions phases with them for pretty much since we bought the property. So it's been about 2 years now. But it is definitely in the plans. It's not funded to create that trail, but we're hoping that we can partner with somebody to make it happen.
That way we can walk to the pavilion from 48th.
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think we're going to need to extend our meeting.
That's
So
right.
I would put a motion on the table.
Well, we need to have someone come back. Do we? We have enough people here. So we're going to extend it for 1 hour?
I would say just till 11.
We don't have to what? We can, it's on or before, right? But, yeah, because if you extend it for half an hour, then you'd have to re-vote again, so. Did you want to make the motion?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I move to extend the meeting until 11 p.m.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
We're voting to extend the meeting to 11, okay. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We are going to,
City Clerk opposes.
Timing.
all right, so we're going to go on to our next presentation.
So thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. This won't take very long. I just wanted to run through the 6-year financial forecast for you. And as you know, the financial forecast is a tool used to project future revenues and expenditures based on trends and data available from city, county, state, and federal agencies, as well as private market data. And the city maintains the 6-year financial forecast as part of the city council's goals to ensure the sufficient resources are dedicated to meet the desired service levels. So a couple things here. The forecast does show that the continued use of fund balance is being used to support the desired levels of service. But we do recognize that the continued fund balance, the use of continued fund balance is unsustainable in the long term. And that is why we will pursue the Financial Sustainability Task Force that we've talked about in 2025, so we can meet those requirements or meet the needs and the desired level of service before we start running into issues. So the forecast generally predicts a 3% increase each year for the majority of funds, and I'll talk about a few of the ones that it doesn't. And then I already mentioned the Financial Sustainability Task Force. So the first one here, you'll see the standard 3% increase, which is relatively conservative. And we also have on the property tax front there our maximum lawful levy of 1% per year. On the utility tax for gas, you see right down below the total sales tax, we did just forecast a 2% increase for that, and that's based on Initiative 2066, which is the repeal that's on the ballot. And so we were a little bit more conservative on that because we don't know what the outcome of that initiative petition will be. Also, for the electricity tax, we increased that slightly to 3.5%. And that's because of the electric vehicles becoming more prevalent. And we think that will increase that revenue a little bit. On the utility tax for cable, we did decrease that pretty substantially. It's about 1.5%. Reasoning for that is many more people cutting the cord and going to streaming services. So, that's why we wanted to recognize that and make sure that was noted. As far as, did I go too far? No, okay. This slide here, everything on this is at 3%, except for the grants line. You'll see that's pretty stable across the board. Reasoning for that is we're not sure what grants we're going to get and what we'll be successful at. I think you heard a little bit about that during Jeff Betts' presentation on the grants that we're going after for Parks Capital projects. So on the revenue side, we have generally 3% across the board. Not much change there. We don't project a huge increase in the need for passports, those kind of things. So we're projecting 3% across the board there. On the expenditure side, we did go, for the most part, to 4% increase, and that's mostly due to materials costs and personnel costs and every other thing that's going up. So increased 4% across the board there. The exception being the reimbursements from utilities. You'll see down toward the bottom. That is at 3.5%, and we wanted to be more conservative on that because that is contributing to the general fund balance, and we didn't want to overstate that revenue. Lastly, you can see on the bottom line there, highlighted in yellow, that our ending fund balance continues to erode. We will have to address the problem before 2027, which is why we are implementing the task force next year so we can have solutions before we come to the point where we're going to have an issue. And with that, that's all I have. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Councilmember Sonmore?
There just seems to be a lot of expectation on this task force, and I'm wondering why, because our city's responsible for the budget.
Mm-hmm. So we wanted to get community input into what are the priorities and to provide council's recommendations and ideas about how we can do that with the input of the community. It's a model that's been used very successfully in communities in our region, including Kenmore twice, and Port Townsend actually just won an award for something very similar.
Anyone else? Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, normally I would be throwing all sorts of red flags about those 6-year financial forecast. I am very concerned about, we all should be very concerned about the ending fund balance starting in 28, 29, 30. We have, if we do not address that, we're going to be in a similar situation as Edmonds and Everett and others that are having to make substantial cuts right now to services. I do applaud the Sustainability Task Force. I think that is hugely needed. It is, and as we'll obviously be having many more conversations about that starting next year and getting that underway. It is going to be, but as Councilmember Sonmore points out, I mean, they've got a heavy lift. There's going to be a lot of work that group is going to need to make, and it's going to be taking we're going to need to rely on them to take a good hard look at the services that we're providing, whether or not we need to make changes to those services, because we can't expect to raise the revenues. That may be one of the recommendations they end up with, but before they get there, they're going to need to look at the services, the service levels, whether or not we can afford to keep providing the services that we're currently providing. And if changes need to be made, if there's other opportunities for us to be able to find other, collaborating with other governments, for instance, other local governments, I think that's, something we're going to need to really be exploring, how we go about continuing to fund, the cost of government. And the cost of government is going up substantially. We talked earlier about just insurance alone increasing 25%. That's outrageous, but that's the cost of doing business, or the cost of government. And we need to be able to find ways to continue dealing with those increased costs to government and providing those services, and figuring out how to do that in a cost-effective manner. And so we are going to be heavily relying on that sustainability task force to be able to make some substantial deep dive into our budget, our services, and revenues, and figuring out how we're going to be able to move forward to be able to address this hugely concerning 6-year financial forecast. But we can be very thankful that we're not in that position today. And as other cities around us are facing substantial challenges and having to deal with that right now, and because they didn't institute something like a financial sustainability task force, they're struggling to figure out what cuts they're going to have to make to city services. So I am going to be very anxious to see what transpires over the next year and a half, I guess, with the sustainability task force, and see how that comes for how we move forward with addressing this challenge. But again, I would be very concerned about these ending fund balances. I am very concerned about these ending fund balances, but I'm putting my confidence in the Sustainability Task Force to be able to make the recommendations that we need to make to address this shortfall, upcoming shortfalls. Thank you.
I'd just like to point out with the task force, if we were supposed to do it, we should have done it last year when we made all these different increases, because our citizens didn't have any voice in that. And now we're already looking at our budget, but the task force isn't responsible for our budget. Our city manager is, and we vote on it. So even though we say this task force is going to do that, it's not their responsibility to balance a budget. It's good for them to know about a budget and to understand it and go into deep details on it, but we've never had a task force before, and we've always had to have a balanced budget because we're forced to have a balanced budget. And so it'll be interesting to see how this is organized, but it is our responsibility and not the task force.
Anyone else? Okay, one more?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, following up on Councilmember Sommer's point, it is our responsibility. They will be doing a lot of heavy lifting and a lot of hard work and deep dive and making recommendations, but ultimately it falls on us to make the next move after those recommendations come out.
All right. I don't see anyone else with their hands up, so we can move on to the next agenda item.
That's the last agenda item, Mayor, except for the executive session.
Okay, so the next item is the executive session. Shall we just go ahead and?
Yeah, and I'll just do the citation here. Per RCW 42.30.110(1)G, council will enter into an executive session for 40 minutes and expect to return at
30 and then extend if necessary.
Okay, so we can do 30 minutes. It makes, I still can't do the math, I'm too tired. Return at 10:30 unless extended, and no action to follow. Thanks.
The executive session has been extended until 10:50.
Okay, we're back to do an extension of our executive session until 11:15. Do I hear a second? Oh, you can make the,
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Move to extend the meeting until 11:15.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? We are extended to 11:15. We are back in session from no action taken. And we are going to table the council liaison reports until the next regular meeting, which is November 7th, and I'm going to adjourn the meeting. We're adjourned.